You opened a private window. You felt safer. That feeling was a lie. Incognito mode is one of the most misunderstood features on any device you own. Billions of people use it every single day, believing it hides what they do online. It doesn't. Not in the way you think. And the gap between what you believe it does and what it actually does is exactly the gap that advertisers, employers, internet providers, and hackers are counting on you to never close. So today you're going to find out what incognito mode actually does, what it was actually designed to do, and why the name private browsing is one of the most misleading labels in the history of consumer technology. Let's start with what it does, because it does do something. When you browse in incognito mode, your browser does not save your browsing history on your device. It doesn't save the cookies from the websites you visit. It doesn't remember what you typed into forums. And when you close the window, all of the local data disappears, gone. As far as your browser is concerned, the session never happened. That's it. That is the entire list. If you share a computer with someone and you don't want them to see what you searched for, Incognito helps with that. If you want to log into a second account on a website without signing out of your first one, Incognito helps with that. If you want to check a flight price without the airline's cookies potentially inflating the price on your next visit, Incognito might help with that. These are legitimate, useful things. But here's what incognito mode does not do. And this is where most people's mental model completely falls apart. Incognito mode does not hide your activity from your internet service provider. Every website you visit sends a request through your ISP's servers. They can see it and they log it. In the United States, your ISP is legally permitted to collect and sell your browsing data to third parties. Your ISP has a detailed record of every site you visited in incognito mode tonight, and they could sell that data to marketers tomorrow morning. Incognito mode does not hide your activity from your employer. If you're using a work laptop, or a work Wi-Fi network, or a corporate VPN, your employer's IT infrastructure can see every site you visit regardless of whether you open an incognito window. Many companies run monitoring software that logs network traffic at the router level. That software does not care what mode your browser is in. It sees the connection request, it logs the destination, and your HR department could pull that report. Incognito mode does not hide your activity from the websites you visit. When you load a website in incognito mode, that website still sees your IP address. It still sees what device and browser you're using. It can still fingerprint your device using your screen resolution, your installed fonts, your time zone, and hundreds of other data points that have nothing to do with cookies. A 2020 study from Princeton University's Center for Information Technology Policy found that browser fingerprinting is now accurate enough to identify users across sessions even when cookies are completely cleared. Incognito mode clears cookies. It does nothing about fingerprinting. Incognito mode does not prevent Google from tracking you if you're signed into a Google account. This one surprises a lot of people. If you open an incognito window and then sign into Gmail, Google knows who you are. From that moment forward, your activity in that window is tied to your account. The same is true for Facebook, Amazon, and any other service you log into. The moment you authenticate, the anonymity is gone. The private window becomes just a regular window with a dark color scheme. In 2020, Google was hit with a $5 billion class action lawsuit, Brown versus Google, specifically over this behavior. Plaintiffs alleged that Google continued tracking users' web browsing even when they were in incognito mode through tools like Google Analytics and Google Ad Manager, which are embedded in millions of websites across the internet. In 2024, Google settled the case and agreed to delete billions of data records collected from incognito users. That settlement is itself an admission of what was happening. Think about that for a moment. $5 billion. Dollars. That's not a clerical error. That's a fundamental deception baked into one of the most used features in the most used browser in the world. Privacy researcher Arvind Narayanan at Princeton has spent years studying exactly how much data companies collect from users who believe they're browsing privately. His research team found that on the average web page, there are dozens of third-party trackers running in the background: ad networks, analytic platforms, social media pixels, none of which are blocked by incognito mode. You open a private window, you visit a news website, and 30 different companies you've never heard of just logged that visit. Now let's talk about what happens at the network level, because this is where the misunderstanding gets genuinely dangerous. Your IP address is your device's identifier on the internet. It's how traffic gets routed to you. Incognito mode does not change your IP address. Every connection you make in incognito mode is still stamped with your IP. Your internet service provider assigns that IP to your account. So if someone wanted to trace a specific connection back to you, law enforcement, a hacker, a subpoena from a website, your IP address is sitting there in the logs, linking every incognito session back to your home, your account, and your name. This has had real legal consequences. People have been investigated and charged based on internet activity they thought was private because they used incognito mode. The belief that private browsing equals anonymous browsing has led real people into situations they didn't anticipate. Your DNS requests are another layer most people forget about entirely. When you type a website address into your browser, your device sends a DNS query, essentially asking the internet's address book where that site lives. Those DNS queries are usually sent to your ISP's DNS server in plain text, unencrypted. Your ISP sees them. Incognito mode does nothing to encrypt or hide your DNS queries. So even if the content of what you're doing on a site is encrypted via HTTPS, your ISP can still see that you visited that site because they handled the DNS lookup that got you there. So what actually works? What does give you meaningful privacy when you need it? The first real layer of protection is a VPN, a virtual private network. A VPN routes your traffic through an encrypted tunnel to a server in another location. Your ISP sees that you're connected to a VPN, but they can't see what sites you're visiting. The sites you visit see the VPN's IP address, not yours. A VPN doesn't make you invisible, but it solves the specific problem that incognito mode fails to solve: hiding your traffic from your internet service provider and from most network level observers. The second meaningful tool is the Tor browser. Tor routes your traffic through multiple encrypted layers across a global network of volunteer-run servers, making it extremely difficult to trace a connection back to a specific IP. It's slower than a regular browser, but for situations where privacy is genuinely critical, it's a meaningfully different tool than incognito mode. The third thing that actually helps is DNS over HTTPS, a setting available in most modern browsers that encrypts your DNS queries so your ISP can't read them. Paired with a trustworthy DNS provider, this closes one of the most overlooked gaps in everyday privacy. None of these tools are perfect, no single layer makes you completely anonymous, but they are built for the problem you actually have. Unlike incognito mode, which was built for a much simpler problem, keeping your local browsing history off your device, and then marketed in a way that made people believe it was something far more powerful. The Chrome incognito window tells you right there in the text when you open it. It says your activity might still be visible to websites you visit, your employer or school, and your internet service provider. It's in the fine print, in a dark box. In text, most people never read because they've already decided they understand what incognito means. Dr. Blaise a professor of computer science at the University of Chicago, who studies user mental models of privacy tools, conducted research showing that the vast majority of users significantly overestimate what private browsing protects them from. In his studies, users believed incognito mode hid their activity from their ISP, from advertisers, and from the government. The gap between what users expected and what the feature actually does was not small. It was enormous, and nobody had told them otherwise. You opened a private window, you felt safer. The window was private from one thing: the person sitting next to you at the coffee shop, trying to borrow your laptop. From everyone else who actually had the ability to see your traffic, the window was open the whole time. The next time you reach for incognito mode, ask yourself who you're actually trying to hide from. If the answer is your browser history on this device, go ahead. If the answer is anyone or anything on the internet, you're going to need something else.